We're still going forward with Moshe's rebuke to the people before his death. So the next thing that he brings up is the episode of the spies. So here's what we have to discuss today. We have to talk about what actually happened and why he's talking about this, especially before they enter Israel. So what was the spy episode? Where they were standing the day all of this was stated is actually where they were standing 38 years earlier. At that point, they were about to enter the land, and they asked Moshe to send spies. Do you know the whole story? Okay, well, sort of, it all depends. Okay, so there are two reasons that they could have sent spies. One was good, potentially one was bad. The good reason would be to figure out a good strategy for conquering the land. You have to know what the terrain is like, where the cities are. The other is to decide if they should try to enter the land. You understand the difference? So Moshe sensed this because the way they approached him, everything about their manner, their hostility, their crowding, their rowdiness showed that they were afraid, because people yell when they think they're not heard, and they act aggressive when they're afraid. That's a basic law in human nature. So he realized that telling them not to send spies would be worse than sending them. Why would saying don't send spies be even worse? It would be, it'll be fine, just trust me, you don't have to look for yourself. Okay, that would have been deadly. So he said, okay, we're going to send spies. He chose 12 individuals who were known for their nobility of spirit, very high people, but they were afraid. Now the question is, what were they afraid of? The ordinary people were afraid of the physical obstacles in entering the land. These people had another fear as well. So the only thing I could say it's analogous to, pretend you were in Neve for 3 months. And pretend in 3 months you went through some pretty radical changes. Could that happen? Hopefully not, but it could. How could it not? Yeah, it can't. And you believe in who you've become. This is who you want to be. Let's say that's the case. And you're afraid to go home. What are you afraid of? Put it into words.
Going back to the way you were acting before?
Yeah, you're afraid of failure. Mm-hmm. Okay, clear? So the Jews were in the desert. They were eating man that fell from heaven every day. They were taught by Moshe. I mean, as much as I like the Nevi teachers, well, okay. They were taught by Moshe. Everything was miraculous. And now they're going to be going into ordinary life, and they were afraid. Okay? So we have two kinds of fear now, spiritual and physical fear. Okay, so they entered the land. They saw the land was enormously fertile. The people who lived there were healthy, strong, large. They had fortified cities. Okay, they also had open cities. Which are scarier, by the way, fortified cities or open cities? Open cities, that means that they're not afraid of anything. Okay, clear? Okay, so they drew some conclusions. But before I tell you what their conclusions were, I want to tell you about the two spies who didn't draw those conclusions. Two of the spies stayed on track. One was Yehoshua. The other was a man called Kalev. Who was Yehoshua? So the story of Yehoshua takes us all the way back to when Moshe first went to Egypt to liberate the Jews after seeing God in the burning bush episode. So God had told him, assemble the elders of Israel and go with them collectively to Paro. He wanted to include all of the people who had had influence over the communities. Okay, yeah? So they initially went with him. But as they approached Paro's palace, they started slipping away. Okay? Until he was left alone. There was a child, okay, a little boy, 12 I think he was supposed to have been, who said, I'll go with you. Moshe, of course, said, no, you won't. You'll wait right here. But that was Yehoshua, and he stayed with Moshe since that day. He became Moshe's chief disciple. So Moshe chose him as one of the spies, but before sending him, he changed his name. His original name was Hosea, and Moshe added one of the letters of God's name, a Yud, and changed it to Yehoshua. But the other spy who worked out okay, Kalev, didn't have any special relationship to Moshe. He chose his way into being different, which is a huge feat. So they traversed the land. There are all sorts of maps, which I find interesting, but if you don't like maps, they're boring. They go what their route was. So they were zigzagging because they wanted to get a whole picture of the land. Kalev left them at one point. He said, I'm leaving you. You can go where you want. I'm going to Hebron. Where is Hebron, by the way? Have you been to Hebron? It's on the West Bank, sort of. How far is it from Yerushalayim? Politically, it's on the West Bank. Actually, it's on the 3/4 of an hour south from Yerushalayim. It's not far. Okay, what's in Hebron? The tombs of the patriarchs and matriarchs. That's what's in Hebron. So if you go there, which you should, because if you don't go now, when are you going to go, right? Okay. So and there are buses that go there, and they don't cost hardly anything. Okay. So you see this like huge palace-like structure. Do you remember this? Do you know how old it is and who built it? Herod, 2,000 years old. Har Nof's falling apart and it's 30 years old. I mean, like, you have like this huge Herodian stones there, and underneath it, deep in the ground, are the tombs of the matriarchs and patriarchs. And Kalev said, I'm leaving you, I'm going to Hebron. Why did he say that? What do you think? He saw himself slipping. He was falling into their trap. He was beginning to believe them. And he said, I need the merit of the patriarchs and matriarchs. So Kalev put himself in danger. He was right in his instance, because had he not gone to Hebron, he certainly would have failed. He knew himself. They get back to Israel. Moshe asks them a battery of questions. What did it look like? Is it big? Is it small? Is it fortified? Is it not? What did the people look like? They answered honestly. They didn't lie. This is an important part of the story. They didn't lie. They didn't exaggerate. But their conclusion was, after they finished describing it, it's unconquerable. We can't do it. It can't be done. So notice they're saying two things. One is we can't do it, and the other is it can't be done. What's wrong with the second one? We can't do it, what? What about God? He's not in the picture. He's the one who said, go conquer it. Okay, so yes, if they were saying, depending on me, I can't do it, that's a reasonable thing to say. But saying God can't do it, if he told us, this is prophetic, that's wrong. Okay, clear? So they were severely punished. What was the punishment? That night, they spoke to the people, and the people were talking to each other. And there was a lot of crying that night. So the punishment was that entire generation that didn't want to go into the land, didn't go into the land. That's why they were in the desert so many more decades. So you learn a principle here. Materially and physically, you get whatever God thinks you need to have for you to fulfill your destiny. Some people need this, other people need that. Everybody has what they need, okay? Spiritually, you get what you want. You could be anyone who you want to be spiritually. There's no roof that says, well, you could only get only this high. If the people would have wanted to go into the land, they could have done it. They didn't want to go in the land, they could not do it. They weren't worthy of it. So after this was told to them, a small group of people said, okay, we changed our mind, we can do it. Who did they say could do it? We. Moshe warned them. He said, don't try. But they did. What do you think the end result was? They died. Okay, clear? So that's the spy story. So what I want to take you to with this story in terms of its relevance is it really is all about the balance between trusting God, trusting yourself, and normal human fears. So the issue in fancy Hebrew is going to be called the issue of making human efforts and trusting God. Okay, clear? So I'll give you two extremes, neither of which is good. Okay? You're in the Neve dining room, as you will be in 15 minutes, right? Okay? And yes, food. Okay. Isn't food good? Okay, whatever. Soon you'll be eating, and eating is always better than what? Not eating. Okay. So suppose you have a new girl, just came today, she's in Mechina, and she's in the Neve dining room, and she says, I'm so hungry. And she's like, sits down right next to you, and let's say you took a bareka and some salad, and you have your fork in, and she's like looking in your plate. She's saying, I'm so hungry. What would you tell her to do?
Go get food.
Yeah, look, there are the plates. They don't have waitresses here. You have to serve yourself. Okay, yeah, that was a funny one. Yep. Okay, you have to serve yourself. There are plastic plates right over here, and there are the bins. They have the salads in different bins. And here's the hot. What do you call it in English? It's called a hot plate. No, it's not a hot plate. Whatever the thing, the heater for the barekas, and just take. Okay. So she comes back to the table, she has some salad, she has some parek, she sits down right next to you, and she's still looking at your plate, says, and you're saying, I'm so hungry, so you say, take a fork and put the food in your mouth. Got it? Okay. And she says, oh, okay. So what's wrong with this picture? So what's wrong with this picture is to get what you want, even if it's there, you have to make some effort. So people will say, where is God? Why don't I have a job? Why this? Why that? God created the world. There is plenty of everything you need in this world. Do you know, by the way, that there's enough food in the world? Did you know this? There is. You should go online and look at the stats. They're horrific. It's just that a certain country, I won't say which one, you can guess, uses a third, are you ready? A third of the gross national product of the entire world. So we would say there's a little distribution issue. Okay, yeah. Okay. A little bit of a distribution issue is in the world, okay? But there's plenty of food. And want to hear an even worse statistic than that, if you're into worse? Have any of you traveled in India? Did you ever see India? In India, when you go there, by the big hotels, there are people who have never lived indoors. They're beggars. They're born in the street, they die in the street, they cost you for money, and they really don't, they're not fakers. The beggars here are sometimes legit and sometimes they're not. In India, they're legit. They really, you see, skeletal children. India is a major exporter of rice. Got this? Second largest exporter of rice. Where does all this money go? In the hands of a very few people. Okay, got it? And it's tolerated in India because they believe in karma. So they think it's the karma of these starving children to die of starvation while somebody else has everything. Okay, clear? So everything is in the world, but God created the world in a way in which we have to make efforts to get what we need. Why do you think he did it that way? He could have made it that everything is just there, like air. You don't have to do anything to get air. It's just there.
So that begins.
Excellent. One reason. It turns us into givers. So I want to illustrate this to you. Did you have a real job before you were in Neve? Or were you a student?
I was a student.
Student.
Psychotherapy.
Okay, psychotherapist. What do you do?
I was a student and had been a waitress.
Okay, waitress. Okay, yeah.
Medical assistant.
Okay.
Student and hostess.
What is a host?
Hostess,
Like in a
We
restaurant?
did at a restaurant.
Okay, good. So let's go through these real jobs. These are all real jobs. Okay, a hostess in a restaurant is a giver. People come in, they don't know where to sit, they don't know if they're welcome. So you bring them in and you make them feel good. So that it'll turn a meal into almost an occasion,
Yeah.
right? Waiting on tables, okay? People come out, they get the food they want, they order what they want, you give it to them. It's giving, okay? Could you see where this is so? Certainly psychotherapy, if somebody has tied themselves in knots, you're giving them clarity, you're giving them a sense of self. The same thing would hold true. You said you were a mental assistant? I don't know what a mental assistant is. I was thinking, does that help people? Mental facilities, what? A medical assistant, you help people get better. All jobs are helping jobs, and I want you to hear the clause, if you choose to regard it as such. So you could be doing a job that people will see as being a helpful job and come at it as a taker, and then it turns into something else. Are there even, let's say, psychotherapists who are takers? Sure. They only want the easier patients, and they want to charge as much money as they can, and they aren't invested in their patients' recovery. There are people like that. Are there waitresses who are takers? Yeah, they work as little as possible, don't care about whether the people who they're serving are getting anything more than they need to get a tip. Okay, it's hard for me to picture a hostess as a taker, but I'm sure you could, again, go into like how little could I give and how much could I get? So it's one of life's major challenges. Are you going to be a giver or a taker? Challenge is what life is about. Okay, clear? And there's more. The way God operates things is that your efforts usually bring some sort of reward, otherwise you wouldn't do it, right? So it's another kind of a challenge. So I want to illustrate this kind of challenge. Okay, be 5. Okay, do you remember being 5? Okay. Okay, you don't remember it anymore. Okay. So pretend you're 5. Your mother wants to give you like a little present. So she gives you a 5-year-old cooking set. Now what does that mean? It means you have something like cornflakes in a tiny little package and like plastic milk. Don't think about this too much. And but you're 5. And like little fake sugar and little spoon, and you put this into this, and you mix it, and you put in the fake sugar, and then you feed your dolls, right? And you could picture yourself telling your mother when you put the milk into the cereal, look what I made. I made Rice Krispies. I made Rice Krispies for Leora. Okay, you could picture that? Did she make Rice Krispies? No. She just took what's already there and gave herself the illusion of making Rice Krispies. Truth is, look how we talk. Okay, I want you to hear how we talk. I like to make challah for Shabbos. I make challah? No, I take existent flour with existent water, existent sugar, existent oil, and I put it in the mixer with yeast and water, and before you know it, there's dough, and I just like playing with clay and put it in the oven. Okay, I didn't make anything. Okay, so...
You did make it.
No, I changed its form. You understand what I'm saying? So you have, in secular philosophy, this is also regarded as a problem. You have the problem, it's called, want to hear the fancy word, how you could take easy ideas and turn them into difficult ideas, even though the best is always to take difficult ideas and make them easy. Okay, here's how you take an easy idea and make it difficult. It's called the problem of immediate as opposed to eventual causality. This is how, so here's how this works. Now I'll make it simple. You're at the bus stop. It has this electronic device that shows you when the bus is supposed to come. You're waiting for the 74. The 74 comes every 20 minutes in theory, okay? So you look at the thing, it says 10. Say, oh great, 10 minutes will be a 74. 10 minutes pass, no bus. 20 minutes pass, no bus. 30 minutes pass, no bus. 40 minutes, could this happen in real life? It could. Finally, the bus comes in, right? And by that time, there are lots of people at the bus stop, and it's crowded. Could you picture someone yelling at the bus driver? Mm-hmm. But he's the one who came. Who should you be yelling at? The one who didn't come. But the way immediate causality is whatever you see most immediately, that's what you attribute the action to. Okay, this is clear? It's like when I come into class and I ask you, where's Sabrina? That is not a rational thing to do. I should ask Sabrina, where's Sabrina, not you. Okay, thank you for not answering me, am I my brother's keeper? I appreciate that. Okay, so the problem of immediate causality in terms of your relationship to God works like this. In earlier societies that had no technology at all, you would pick an apple, let's say, off an apple tree and eat. And you couldn't help but see the tree grew from seed by God and you're eating its fruit. So maintaining a certain level of spirituality was relatively easy. When you read in the Talmud, the food that they had then was so limited, the varieties were so limited. They had wheat, they had rice, they had dates, they had maybe 5 kinds of fruits and vegetables, and that's it. Even oil there was only olive oil. Okay, the only drink was either wine or water. So the reason I'm telling you this is it was easier for people to see the direct cause, the original cause. Now B5 again. Okay, there's ice cream in the freezer. So your mommy says you could open the freezer and take out a popsicle. So you take it out. As far as you're concerned in your 5-year-old head, where do popsicles come from? The freezer. Now you may be a little more sophisticated, so if your mom would say, well, how did it get to the freezer? The store. How did it get to the store? The truck. For almost all 5-year-olds, is that the end of the story? Okay, so some of them, especially if their mothers read them Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, know that it came from the factory, but they don't know that there are natural ingredients in that. They have no idea. And most adults don't take it as far back as the original cause either. For most adults, where do popsicles come from? The store. We don't even take, where did you get it? Okay, got it? We think like 5-year-olds. So the reason I'm telling you this is that the fact that we have to make efforts is an enormous challenge. Both, will you be a giver as a taker, or will you take things to their original cause and develop a relationship with God, or will you irrationally attribute everything to yourself because you used what God provided? You understand this? Okay, so that's why you have to make efforts. But here's a big however. You could drown in your own efforts. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? Okay, so I'll just give you one example so I won't run you over time. There was a sort of mini stock market crash in 1986. And there were a significant number of suicides on Wall Street, okay? The people who were jumping out of the windows, were they going to starve to death, do you think?
No.
So why were they jumping out of the windows? They lost their stocks, they lost their bonds. What made their lives not worth living?
Or like embarrassed or ashamed.
They're ashamed of failure, but that's only part of
Defeated and hopeless.
defeated. The issue here is defeat. They feel ashamed and defeated because to them, victory in life had to do with what?
Money.
Had to do with material success. So if they reach a point where it looks like they could never succeed again materially, then life's not worth living. That's the challenge of having to make efforts. We attribute our efforts to our own essential selves. So we think that who we are is worth living, our lives are worth living or not worth living on the basis of our own efforts materially, as opposed to who we become. It has to do with having as opposed to being. Okay, clear? That's it for today.